Good afternoon. Sunday afternoon, sun shining, beautiful here in Cape Girardeau today. Want to give a little brief discussion about the chapter and this week's assignment on terrorism. From what I've read so far, and I'm going to read some more tonight and comment on them, on your writings, on updating the chapter, everyone pretty much had the idea of what I was after. And that's something you shouldn't worry about too much because I want you to feel free to express yourself with the assignments. They're not cookie cutter assignments. I don't want you to feel like you're rolling your face across the keyboard. That graphic picture should become more real to you when you actually look at the module, because I have something to show you on there that looked pretty good to me. And also a short article on what happened this week. I don't know if your internet went out, but it's always timely with this topic that things seem to happen. And our internet was slow, if not down, Friday because of some type of hacking attempt that actually shut down a lot of the computers in the eastern part of the United States. So what was that? So look into that a little bit. The idea, was it terrorism? Was it hackers? Who knows at this point? But just work on these assignments. Do what you can with, I guess my grading rubric is basically summed up in that if I can smell your sweat and your indication of efforts on these assignments, you're going to get a good grade. I want you to put thought into it and not so much fill a box that I'm after. I want you to think about this topic because these topics are very impactful to your staff down the line. How much thought you put into your theology, theories, the work you do, how you take care of yourself as a manager is really important. And the other thing is the assignment mirrors something that happens in law enforcement and in many careers. It's a collaboration. I know you find yourself sitting there at the computer, as I do a lot by myself, writing, thinking it's just me, but most of the work is a collaboration in criminal justice, and it should be, especially the jobs that you're working with the team, doing larger investigations. I think most people find they want that collaborative work. So this is something you're collaborating at this point with Banks. You're trying to revise her chapter, basically. So it's an exercise in collaboration that happens when you're rewriting policy, when you're writing a search warrant, affidavit, and all kinds of matter of things. I'll give you an example from yesterday morning. This text on my computer started at 7:05 on a Saturday. I have a work week and then I have a weekend work week. So this started my weekend work week. And to define a term on this thing I'm reading, it keeps talking about the 33. And in Missouri, the 33 is a form where physicians, law enforcement officers, or juvenile officers can take a emergency custody of a child. And so 33 is someone has filled out that form, which starts a whole line of legal procedures. So let me just read it and then explain why I think it's important for the class. It starts off saying, "Hey Matt, Josh from MCD called, said a doctor signed a 33 on a 2-year-old. Dad brought him to the hospital saying he was dying and hadn't slept for a period of time. Dad was acting bizarre, saying child's mom had died or committed suicide. Dad also said he hadn't slept in 36 hours. Dad's address is in Cape. Josh also said no one believed mom died, and deputies in Scott County are looking for her at an address she's listed under there. The 2-year-old is fine." So my attorney said, that was my deputy juvenile officer on call, my attorney said, what time did judicial custody begin? I'm up in St. Louis this weekend with family from KC, so I'll be available, but may be spotty. The attorney also posts, if possible, see if MCD can get an actual statement, letter from doctor, instead of just the 1 or 2 lines on the 33. Thanks. At that point, I chimed in with my on-call officer to remind him that he only had 24 hours to get certain court orders, petitions, everything done. So even though the attorney recommended that he go out and do more investigative work, just reminded him he's on a timeline. Now, this is, a manager's job to do this. On the other hand, you have to be very careful because my on-call officer has been here 21 years. And so he knows what he's doing. He knows exactly he could do it in his sleep. But yet, the attorney has a job or a duty to represent us and to make sure that everything looks good in front of the judge and is legally sufficient, is constitutional. My officer has a duty to get all the forms, all the information in front of the attorney to file. I have a duty to make sure that the timelines are being upheld and that my staff is following the policy. So everybody's working together on this. And this is an example of the collaboration that happens on these cases. So about an hour passes and I get this. Mom was found. House is fine. MCD is letting 33 expire. So next message, probably from another supervisor, my chief deputy. He says, I hope somebody hotline crazy dad, which I'm sure took place, and I'm sure we're going to find out. He was positive for methamphetamine, and there's going to be all kinds of issues that are not going to result in custody of this child, but probably a safekeeping case, contract with mom if she doesn't test positive. So this is a typical kind of case I work 10 to 15 times a week. Next message. I won't say who this one's from, but it says, I was betting that mom's head would be found in a cooler, but that's just my sunny disposition. Everyone have a great weekend. And that's it from that little train of collaboration that happened at 7 to 8:30, 9 a.m. Saturday morning. So the issues there pretty much run my work life through the week now, is working with meth families and trying to support, care for children that are involved in that situation. Not involved with the treatment of the adults, but I am involved with making sure the kids are safe. The older kids, we're working with setting them up with skills so they can be independent, because it's rare they're going to be able to go back home. So 50 kids in this county we're looking at over the course of the next 6 months, providing job skills, training, first aid CPR classes, and as many things as we can think of, mock interviews, bringing in employers to talk to them to try to help them be self-sufficient in the next few years, because we have very little hope the parents will be able to get their lives together. So that's just a little bit. Back to terrorism. What did I find while I was going through the material, the chapter, to get better prepared, to read your answers, and also better prepared if I ever teach this again? Well, one thing I found was the Journal of Military Ethics. As I was going through search engines from Ole Miss, and I found an article that was particularly on point in this, which was a whole issue of the Journal of Military Ethics in 2014. But it was a response to an article in that journal from a George Lucas. He's a professor of ethics and public policy at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. But I thought his article was very good and discussed a lot of the points that were attempted to be made in this chapter. But again, the chapter was a little bit dated in the book. But he talked about the morality of anticipatory self-defense, which I thought was a great topic for an ethics professor to be thinking about, writing about the morality of this, of attacking early, of making a anticipatory attack, and especially how, like what we experienced Friday, just how many regular citizens can be impacted by what governments do. And I thought that was a really good explanation in this guy's article, and I'll give you the citation in the module. The other thing he talked about, which I have found in reading about terrorism and watching terrorism, is he agreed with something that I was having trouble putting into words, that the threshold of the definition of war has been lowered. And the idea of what is termed as war and what we need to look at is how we define war is not so much the big events, impactful battlefields that we think of, but these small events that occur and how those have been now fall under the category of war, which he found problematic, but also something we had to address and contend with. Historically, I, as an undergraduate, was a historian and read history books and read as much as I can in different periods as my schedule allows. But one of the things he brought up was the international law of armed conflict and the idea that one of the points in that is the idea that governments need to be identifiable when they do make a response. We need to have, and so they can be held reasonably accountable for how they respond. So how do you identify? And things happen now that it's like the article I will post about, well, who did it? Who did this week that caused all the internet to crash? Nobody knows. Everybody's guessing. So, which brings to mind for me the idea of piracy. And so, to tell you how my brain worked, I started researching some of the modern piracy issues a little bit and found my old buddy Foucault with a beautiful short statement, which I'll post in the module, which was written back in 1981, having to do with the Vietnamese boat people and the response, the lack of response from governments for the boat people that were basically in the ocean, just like they are now. The people that are in nondescript rafts, boats, piled into things that basically is sinking, can't float, they're starving, drowning, and governments weren't responding at that time as much either. And so this was a statement that he wrote in support of a new committee called the International Committee Against Piracy from the United Nations. And I'll post this on the module, but the idea that about being an international citizen, and I think that's where it dovetails into the chapter. Immanuel Kant's discussion in the chapter has to do with duty. It has to do with what are the maxims, especially on page 287, the maxims he gives, that should be or could be universal in people's lives. And I think that's where the next assignment comes in of writing a policy. I want you to somewhere to add, and I'm going to add it in the front of the policy I write, about one person per cell, which I think looks like solitary confinement in the world of juvenile justice, but on the other hand, I think really protects kids from being abused at night when no one is there to watch them. They're not under any type of surveillance in cells, which could be a problem in itself. So, how many people is in a cell? But anyhow, I'm going to write what kind of maxim is in the forefront of my mind when I put that together. But page 287, I think it's real important that talking about what are these things? What are these things in our lives that um, and on that page, it's about always be loyal to your friends, always watch out for number one. Can we say never snitch? Can we say never rat out a fellow officer? I mean, those are maxims for some. So, what are they behind the policy that you're writing? So I think that's the piece I want you to get out of the chapter. I want you to understand that this chapter is going to overlay the other assignments because it's the big one on deontological theories of ethics. So it's at least, I would say, the most important chapter in the book having to do with law enforcement officers, policy writing, and putting together your career and who you are loyal to. So go with the chapter, read the module, and carry forth.